In this tutorial, we're going to walk through some of the tools offered in the Accident Reconstruction toolbox. To access the toolbox, we go to the CSI menu and choose Accident Reconstruction Tools. Here we're prompted to either select a new ARD file or choose an existing one. So we'll create a new ARD file. You can see that we have some default items saved from our last session. New items that we can type in are the case number and case title. But to make things easier for each accident entered, we store your defaults every time you save your file. So this dialog is driven by tabs. You can see across the top we have main setup, and then we get into some of the more specific calculators offered in the Reconstruction tools. The main setup tab also offers some buttons that take us into some further dialogues where we can enter accident information, vehicle information, people and witnesses, and then our report options. So let's start by entering a new accident. We'll go into the Accident Info tab. Here we can enter things about the accident such as time and place, road conditions, weather conditions, and any damages and injuries that may have occurred. So we'll start by entering today's date. And an approximate time of the accident. These are in 24-hour notation. And a route and street. A nearest intersection. The city. And state. We can set what the posted speed limit was and the road conditions, the approximate temperature, and any other weather conditions, and if there are other injuries or property damage, and OK. Next we can go into the vehicle info to describe the vehicles that were involved. On the right we have the vehicle lookup button, and here we have a database of most modern cars through 2009 and some 2010 models. We can also sort the list by car, truck, or van. So let's choose a Chevy Colorado. Here we enter the license plate numbers, registration year, state of registration, and a VIN number. Once we've entered that in, we can add the vehicle to our list, and we'll add a second vehicle. Let's choose the Audi. Another license plate. And we'll add that to the list. And OK. Now we can continue adding people, items, witnesses, but now since we have a couple of vehicles, let's go into some of the calculators. The next tab has some general calculators for calculating acceleration, velocity, time, also some distances, and velocities. And these are helpful for determining beginning and end speeds or distance traveled. The friction and skid tab is good for calculating starting speeds based on skid mark lengths. So we can choose one of our entered vehicles. It's now available to us in the drop down, and we can enter a skid mark length, choose a friction factor, and enter a road grade. say -5 downhill. Our ending speed and braking efficiency. We can choose some common braking factors. Since we're choosing a passenger truck, we can choose a high efficiency. And once we press the enter key, our starting speed is calculated for us, and we can add that to the skid list. The skid list is there in case we have multiple skids to track. Perhaps there was a skid segment, the vehicle resumed rolling, and then was skidding again. Here we have the collinear momentum calculator. This is useful for calculating head-on and rear-end collision factors. In our case, we'll choose the rear-end collision. The vehicle drop-down list will contain our vehicles again that we entered in the main setup. So we'll choose the Chevy truck as vehicle number 1. The weight is automatically pulled in for us, and we'll enter the after-impact speed. We'll assume about 5 miles an hour. Vehicle 2, being the Audi, the weight is brought in for us, and the speed it was traveling at impact, let's say he was nearing rest, and the speed after being hit at about 10 miles an hour. And then when we calculate, we can find that the initial impact speed of vehicle 1 to be about 10 miles per hour. The angular momentum tab is similar to collinear momentum, but our vehicles are starting on different paths. Vehicle 1 traveling in one direction, vehicle 2 either entering or leaving on another direction. The crush tab displays the crush calculator. Again, we have our vehicles available from the main setup. Let's choose the Audi. And here we can select what type of crush is happening, 2-point, 4-point, 6-point, or if the vehicle has struck a pole or tree. So we'll assume a 2-point. Here we have stiffness coefficients. Depending on the class of car, we can choose rear, since we were struck in the rear side, and we can choose a representative vehicle type similar to the Audi. So we'll choose about the Ford Taurus size and say OK. Our stiffness coefficient factors are brought in for us. We'll assume that this was a direct rear collision, so the angle will leave at 0, and enter the width in inches of the car. C1 and C2 refer to the diagram at the right, where we measure our crush distances. We'll assume about 6 inches straight across. And we'll calculate. Once we've calculated, we can see velocity change and speed change. We also can detect the kinetic energy required for such a crush in foot-pounds. And all this is saved for us when we hit the save button. Our last tab is for calculating flips, vault, and yaw. Again, we have a vehicle drop-down list containing the vehicles in our accident. We can also calculate the vaults and flips in the top half, yaw and critical speed in the bottom half. We'll cover these more in a future tutorial. We also have a reporting option. Here we can output reports to PDF, and the users can customize what types of things they'd like to have in their report. The reports are run from the bottom main report button. So we'll click here, and this will generate a PDF containing all of our report information. Things are broken up by section as we enter them, starting with our base report information, location, officers involved, weather conditions, roadway conditions, any damages. Paging down, we also have our vehicle information, a list of all vehicles involved pulled from the data file. Reports can also include any people and items and witnesses had we entered that data. So this has been a brief overview of the accident reconstruction tools, and we'll cover some more of the calculators in a future tutorial.